Panelists are happily married and people I really admire because I watch people and I see how people relate, especially people who've been married for a long time, and they still like make eye contact and act like they like to be with each other. I am very impressed by that. So, but also people who've been really supportive and given their life for our school, so I think there's something to be heard by that. And what we'll do is we'll do some introductions and they'll walk through a couple questions, but you have an opportunity to ask some questions tonight. But in a really small group, you are probably not going to ask the question you really want to ask. So on the board is my cell phone number. As we did our last panel on religion, feel free to text me any question you want, and I won't say, oh, by the way, Sheena asks this question.
Sheena from Pikeville.
Yes, Sheena from Pikeville, from the basement says. So anyways, we'll ask those questions. So without further ado, thanks for your time. And so why don't you introduce yourselves so everyone knows who you are.
Sure. I'm Mark Bolt. I teach biology here. At least one of you knows that.
Yeah.
I've taught here since 2007.
Wow, 2007. I'm trying to get a frame of reference. What grade were you guys in 2007?
Second grade.
Okay. Just thought I'd put that out there, okay?
You know, when I started teaching, I was like I was the same age as everybody's parents. Now I'm the same age as their grandparents. So.
Hey, there you go.
I'm his better half, Corrine. I work here in admissions, and I've been here since 2007. Same story. I'm just an administrator.
I'm Candice Fleming, and I teach 6th and 7th grade science at Millard, and we live in Gillespie now in the Honors Res Hall, and it's been a really good experience for us.
And I'm Johnny Fleming. I teach math here. Been here since 2010. And when I started teaching here, I got mistook for a student a whole lot. That doesn't happen as much anymore, sadly. Okay. Yeah, right. Come on in.
Come on in. Okay.
That's okay.
So,
I'll just embarrass you.
how did you guys meet?
So we met in high school. I came in as a freshman and in high school, and I was in band. And so right before the school year started, we had band camp. And when I walked in with my trombone, I walked in and I sat down next to Candice, and that's how we met. So.
And I had just the year before decided to be in the band and play trombone, so
Yeah.
there we are.
So you're going to get married, join the band. You want to hear? Okay.
I don't really remember the exact instant we met, but we've been in school together since we were in the 3rd grade.
Wow.
So we didn't start dating right now.
Wait until the 4th grade.
We waited 1 year.
But we've kind of known each other forever, it seems like.
Yeah, that's really almost forever, isn't it? Wow. So obviously some, 3rd grade or in high school here, but so obviously looking at some young people here, minus Sheena, and
Wow. Big love She's young, by the way.
she's young. She's younger than I am, so she's under that 40 mark. So, what advice do you have for couples, young couples particularly?
I would say be patient, understanding, cooperate, compromise a lot.
Don't feel like the person you're with or want to be with right now has to be the person that you're with forever. It was for us, I think, and evidently was for you all too if you've known each other that long. But it doesn't necessarily have to be that person. So keep that in mind as well. Look out for yourself as well as your significant other.
Well, and I would say make sure you have fun together. If you can't keel over laughing at least once a week over something stupid you did or you said or whatever, don't take yourselves too seriously either. Because that's part of what we've done. It's just, there are so many things that are hard, you know. Finances are hard. If you decide to be in a relationship, that can be kind of hard. Have fun. Just be corny sometimes and let some of that stuff go and everything else works out too.
Nothing to add.
You know, give me later if I did, so.
So obviously you said something I think is very honest. Relationships are hard. Anything worthwhile is hard, right? So relationships are hard. And how do you navigate those difficult moments? Because obviously you guys have been married for how many years?
Almost 15.
Almost 15. And you've been married
42.
42 years. So probably a few ups and downs over those years. How do you navigate those moments or even seasons?
Well, you gotta remember that you're a team, you know. Everybody does their part, and you gotta remember the other person is not out to hurt you, they're there to help. Too many people let the ego get in the way, and I don't know, that's just not me. We're in it together, and once we made a commitment, you know, to get married, you know, you jump in with both feet, you don't look back, you don't say, hey, I could have made a better decision if I picked somebody else. No, that's not the way you sustain a relationship. It's all in or nothing.
Okay.
I think honesty is a big part of it. I mean, if you can't be honest with that person that you've devoted yourself to, then I think you really have to step back and take an honest look at yourself, right? Because that one person is the person that you should be able to let down your guard, and you should be able to just tell them everything no matter what. And even if it means you screwed up really, really bad, that's the one person you can go, hey, look, I screwed up really, really bad today. I'm sorry, let's move forward, let's fix it. So yeah, honesty is huge.
And then I have to accept it and we move on.
Is a huge key to that.
It's always him that made the mistake.
Oh, no.
Usually.
Well, and once you get past that point, you have to let it go. I've heard that guys are very good at being frustrated or unhappy about something, and they kind of blow up and then they move on. And women, and these are horrible sexist generalizations, okay, I will just say that. But women tend to kind of hang on to some of those things. I worked with a woman who said, I can forgive people, but that doesn't mean I'm going to forget. And she said, I take some things out and I buff them off every once in a while, and then I tuck them back away. And I was like, you're putting a lot of energy into some of that angst. So you're better off if you work through it and go on.
So yeah, I mean, obviously, when you think about, you know, you said something that was really insightful. The idea of when you jump in and make a commitment to a relationship, and there's no looking back. But obviously, you know, in 42 years, you've seen culture change, even the way communities support relationships or long-term relationships. And it seems like now there is a real emphasis on new is better, kind of trade in the old, you really deserve, right? These things that are frustrating should seem like earth-shattering. How do you push against that cultural tide that really is kind of anti-long-term relationship?
Well, I ask them to say, we like to experience some new things together. We like to travel and enjoy that with each other, so you can create the new within your relationship.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, our relationship today is nothing like it was 10 years ago. I don't think we do a lot of the same things. We don't, you know, everything has to evolve or become stagnant. And I think that's a choice you make.
Well, and I think it's important that you do things together, like you travel together. If there are guys' nights out and girls' nights out, and people go home for Christmas with out their significant other, I think that works against you for the long term. I recently heard somebody say that he never spent a holiday with his spouse, ex-spouse. And I thought that was kind of a telling thing, but you do those things together.
Yeah, so one of the questions was, how did you know? I mean, because obviously we live in a culture that, especially in higher or in college, hookup culture is kind of the preeminent conversation, right? People meet at 2 a.m. You up at 2 a.m., right? We know and so now here you are in these long-term committed relationships, and how did you know that this was the person that you wanted to spend your life? Because I mean, that's like, I'm having a hard time deciding what major I want, let alone decide this is the person that I'm going to spend my life with. How did you know that you knew?
I was always just really comfortable around Corrine. I mean, we didn't date in high school, but we took all the same classes. She was actually dating one of my friends in high school. But when I got out of the Navy, and I actually ran into her mom at the grocery store and was telling me that Corrine was going to be home for Easter or something, and that she was teaching physics. I had to talk to her then because I knew the only reason she got through physics in high school was because of me and my friends. It's like she's teaching physics. And, you know, one thing led to another. You know, we just had a good time together. So it's like, if you're comfortable with somebody and you can just be relaxed around them and not have to, you know, put on something that you're not, it makes for a very easy relationship.
Well, and you want to be with that person. I'm sure everybody's been in a relationship where you were dating somebody and then it was like, are we gonna get together tonight or not? If you don't care, that's a big sign that, if you don't care if you spend the evening with that person, then I would think if that happens a lot, then that's not the person. You know, you want to be with them and you're comfortable with them.
And they're the person that you want to tell everything, whether it's good or bad.
Yes.
They're the person that you want to be around in all situations.
For sure. I always throw back to a scripture that my dad used to say all the time, is absence makes the heart grow fonder. And I think it's all more about what you're thinking about when you're not with that person. So like Candice said, when I'm here and something really good happens to me, I can't wait until we get home so I can tell her about it. I mean, other people know that's great, but like until she knows it, for me, it's almost like it's not real yet. So, yeah, and I think being apart and just wanting to be with that person no matter what, you know, that was it for me. And that happened early in our relationship. So.
And we taught together in the same school 1 year, and before the principal would hire him, he was like, do you think you can work, and we taught the same grade, do you think you can work together? And I was like, yeah, we really can. And he did not, he was like very unsure about it, but then he was like, yeah, you really could. Because, I mean, we just wanted to be together. It didn't matter if we were working or not. So it was good in that show that we could be together all the time.
It's really cool. So be the person you want to text first and spend time with, and a telling sign is if they're gone for the week and you don't really notice, or you're kind of happy, that may be a sign, right? Like that could be a big problem. So, you know, as we've talked about, people are maybe not getting married now or pushing off marriage. We know now that statistically people are getting married much older. A lot of people are telling you to wait till you're in your 30s before you got married. Now, you guys are kind of abnormal in some ways. You both got married, it seems like, or at least knew each other for a long time. Do you consider yourself having gotten married young? And if so, would you say, wow, in retrospect, I would have loved to marry this person, but I would love to have been 28, 29, or 30 before that happened?
For me, I would say no. And we were young. I mean, I was 20.
I had just graduated college.
Yeah, I was still in school. So
He had a year left.
it was almost, in in my mind, it was almost like I couldn't wait any longer. And I still think back and
We had waited as long as
yeah,
we could.
as long as we were gonna. So, yeah, for sure.
Well, we got married when we were 23. No. In a way, we always planned on having children, and it's like I told Corrine when we were talking about having kids after we've been married for a couple of years. You know, I don't want to have kids when we're over 30. If we're gonna have kids, have them before we're 30, because I want them out of the house by the time I'm 50, so that we can still enjoy life. And it might sound selfish, but and you know, I teach genetics, and I also know the downside, especially for women, of having children when they're older. I mean, the chance of Down syndrome when you hit 35 goes up to 1 in 250, where it's 1 in 40,000 when you're in your 20s. So those are all very real considerations that are very personal to people. I understand women postponing because they want to do careers and all that stuff, but they also have to keep those things in mind too. And so I wouldn't have postponed, just because we wanted kids, we wanted to have them when we were still young enough to, you know, enjoy the whole process of them growing up. I know I had friends that, when I was in the Navy, that he was 18, his father was 75. It's like, that's really kind of out there.
Wow, that's
His-
biblical.
His mom was a lot younger than his, you know, but several decades younger than his father, but still, you know, it wasn't like having a dad that could go out there and play with you. So, there's lots of things to think about when it comes to relationships. If you want kids, you know, you want to have them when you think about that kind of stuff and plan according to how you see your life playing out. Now, as my daughter is fond of saying, you know, we make plans and God laughs, but
That's right.
you don't know how it's gonna work out for sure, but you do the best you can.
Yeah, and I know there's a real tension right now as people think about planning families or having it. Some people want to be more established and more like rooted and grounded before they start families. Others say, hey, I want to be really young. We see it bouncing back and forth. But I wonder, you know, everyone has relationship advice, whether it's Facebook where I get all my wisdom, or it's the person in the grocery store, or someone at Easter dinner or Thanksgiving. And when you hear people talk about relationships today, is there anything that you hear that makes you go, ugh? Is there anything that hits you in the gut and you go, yeah, I'd like to challenge that?
The one thing that jumps out at me is people saying that we want to live together for a few years and try it out and see how it works. It's like not really committing to me. And this is very personal. If you just do the living together, and I understand there's lots of reasons to do that, but it's like saying, it's the first sign of a little bit of a rough spot, I'm out of here. And it's never going to work that way, I don't think.
Yeah, and interesting enough, statistics would back you up. There's a higher rate of divorce among people who live together prior to, right, being married, which is interesting. We think that, normally we would think that trying it out first, but like you say. Anything that you hear in modern relationships advice that you go,
That I can think of.
I'm sure you're going to say, I wish I'd tried it out first.
I'm kind of drawing a blank right now as I'm falling off the stage.
yeah, it's real, 4 chairs up here is real tight, real
There you
tight.
go.
That's why we put you on the edge, John.
Yeah, actually, I volunteered, I can.
So, but I think the real issue is about trust. We're all looking for things that we can trust, and for many people, either parents or other institutions that they felt like they could trust, right, haven't really been trustworthy. We know that the most recent stats is that people under 25 pretty much don't trust anything, really, very suspicious of everything. And how is it that you, because you guys have talked about being comfortable with each other and just kind of knowing, but how in the world do you develop a trusting relationship?
Well, I think it definitely takes time, and at some point, you just have to believe that you can trust them, and, you have to take that chance. And then every time that they come through with something, it builds a little bit stronger.
Yeah, I think it's faith at first. I mean, I think you put your faith in that person, and then you repeatedly put your faith in that person over and over, and then it's to the point where, okay, I can rely, I can trust that what they say is what they're going to do, or whatever the case is.
And you hear about people who have been married for a long time. They find out their significant other, their husband, wife, whatever, has had an affair, and I cannot imagine what it would feel like to find out they betrayed you like that. I think that must be a horrible, horrible feeling. And I just, you build that relationship over time, and it just needs a good foundation.
Part of it is, like Candice said, you just gotta believe, it's, you gotta, well, I don't know if you've ever read any John Ortberg, but, he says, you can't walk on water unless you step out of the boat.
Mm-hmm.
So, you gotta at least give it a try.
I think it's a real challenge, right, is if we have been kind of burnt by other institutions or other trustworthy people, and then to be willing to trust in a culture that doesn't really value loyalty as maybe at other times and seasons in our country's history. So when we think about trust, we know that everyone's looking for a healthy relationship. And obviously, I have looked at you and said, I think these are real healthy relationships. But for you, you've mentioned some things, but some people are very interested in, like, how do you know that your relationship is healthy? Not that you just are married, right? How do you know that it's healthy?
It's a really difficult question.
I didn't know there was a test.
That one was on the study guide.
Well, I think Johnny and Candice talked about this a little bit, where they are different people than they were 10 years ago because they like to travel and do some of those things. I know that you've been part of musical groups, dropped out of that for a while and come back to it. And I think the thing is you find things that you do together that you enjoy, that you both enjoy doing, that keep things fresh or new, or, those kinds of things. Like, we don't travel as much as we would like to, but a couple of years ago, we went to the beach for the first time ever for a vacation, and I had a blast. And we were driving there, and Mark's like, I'm not so sure about this. I'm like, it's with family, it's gonna be great, it's gonna be great. And we had a really good time. Now, if he'd been absolutely miserable and gotten sunburned and had food poisoning from seafood and all this other kind of stuff, we would have never gone again. You have to figure those things out. But, you just do those things. Don't let yourself get in the rut. Don't. If you're sitting at home every night watching TV, you need to do something else. That's my opinion.
Well, I mean, we enjoy watching TV too. But yeah, and just finding joy in anything that you do together. And, if you find yourself miserable, then it's probably not healthy. If you can't just enjoy a few moments alone and just sit and be happy, then that's probably not healthy. But if you can just enjoy each other's company, even when you're not doing the exciting things like traveling and playing music.
And I think, so like this stereotypical husband and wife is like this constant struggle and banter and fighting back and forth between each other, and the man calling the wife is a ball and chain, and the wife, right, and like you hear all this stuff, and I think a healthy relationship looks at that stuff and laughs. Not at any point have I ever wanted to call her anything but Candice or my wife. She's not a burden, and she's never been a burden. And when I hear people do that, and it's kind of, that really hurt, that really gets me, because it's almost a pet peeve of mine, because it belittles this wonderful thing that we have. So that's one thing I think, healthy relationships, I think, don't have any of that in them. And then when she has success, I'm cheering her on, and vice versa. And I think when she fails, I'm sad with her, I'm mourning with her, I'm angry with her. And I think if you can't do those things, then you may need to take a step back and look at your relationship and whether or not it's healthy.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. I rambled a little bit, but I think I got to a point.
No, we
right?
tapped into a passion there.
Passion.
That was good. I like to see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it develops a passion there. Yeah, so I think what you guys are offering are very, very helpful insights about how do we do relationships and navigate over time. But it seems like it takes a lot of intentionality. It doesn't just happen, particularly in a culture that's not supportive anymore. I mean, 100 years ago, people had to stay married because that's kind of how the society and the community worked. But today we know it's, and honestly, within 60 days here in our state, you can get divorced, right? You never have to see a judge or anything. So the system is now designed for people to be able to kind of separate easily, much more than previous. So it takes hard work. So, I mean, who do you now, because Johnny said, when people talking about their relationship, like, oh, I gotta go talk to the old woman or the ball and chain, who do you look to for your own, and who have you looked to historically for, like, that's a relationship I aspire to be? Because, like, I'll be vulnerable in this room, I have a divorced family now. Right? So my kids will not be able to look at my own first marriage and say, there's a gold standard. Actually, they'll be able to say, boy, what not to do. So even for my own kids, it's like, where will they go to see healthy relationships? So for you guys, who did you look to, or who do you look to say, that's the kind of relationship I would want?
Yeah, my parents had a really good relationship. So, and my dad's advice to me when I was getting married, he says, there are going to be times when you're going to come up with that quick retort. He says, think twice before you say anything.
He didn't really take that advice. He has told me about that.
He says, is it really worth saying?
That might be the gem of all right tonight, that right there. So obviously your parents, you look to your parents.
Yes.
Good healthy relationship.
Well, and one of the things that Mark has done over time, because it just worked out well for us. I have very sensitive skin, and our children were born in February, and it was so long ago that we had our own well, and our water was really, really cold, and we use cloth diapers. Now, you people probably do not know what cloth diapers are, but you have to rinse those bad boys out. And my hands would turn into red, nasty looking things. And so he just said, I will always take care of the diapers. As time went on, it was dish detergent and some other things, and he just does the dishes sometimes. If we're both working in the kitchen, sometimes I do them too. But for the most part, he has taken on those little things. And there are some guys who are like, I'm never touching a diaper in my life, and I wouldn't be caught dead doing dishes. And that's not, those are little things like I'm sure you guys have done, who's cleaned up after the dog or whatever. But Mark's parents did that. His mom had rheumatoid rheumatoid arthritis. There were many, many, many things she could not do. His dad never complained. It was, what can I do for her? That was the example they set. And it's those little things over the long haul that really show somebody you care about your life together and your commitment to each other. And I would say his parents were probably the most solid couple that I know. I mean, your aunts and uncles were too, for the most part. But it's all that generational stuff as well.
I would say both of our parents were pretty good examples, but now we really are surrounded by our friends, and both of our best friends are married, and we spend a lot of time with both of them, and so, you know, we watch their struggles, and, you know, we talk about things with each other. We're all really good friends, and so that's our relationships that we work with and see all the time.
Yeah, and I'm piggyback on something Corrine said. You know, I watched my dad. My dad was, actually when I'm piggybacking way back to something that Mark said, my dad was much older than my mother. And so my dad was retired when I came along. My mom worked, she owned a business. And so when I would come home from school, my dad would be at home. My mom would still be at work. And my dad would be doing the dishes, or he'd be doing the laundry, or he'd be doing, you know, like vacuuming the house. And mom would come home. They would cook dinner together, they would do dishes together, and I watched that growing up, and I remember Dad saying, "You've worked all day, go sit down, take a break, and let me do this thing." And so that, again, a really healthy relationship. And then same with her parents. Her dad worked night shifts a lot, and so he would cook, and then like take a nap, and she would fix his dinner, he would get up, get it, she would see him off to work, and I was there for a lot of that because that was in the
Because we like to
evenings.
be together.
So yeah, we were surrounded by it. Really, we were very fortunate in that regard.
Yeah, so questions that you might have, I know that some people sent me some questions, but are there any other questions that you would like to ask or comment on, or something you would like to add? I just kind of pummeled you with questions. Anything you would like to add? Because obviously we've seen relationships done well, and obviously we have seen the drama that relationships can create. Holy smokes, right? Especially with the advent of social media. Now someone breaks up and we all know about it every moment of the day. So any other questions that you guys might have? All hearts are clear?
We're good, we answered all the questions.
I mean, yeah, you just, now we have 10 people who can go out and have the strongest, healthiest relationship. And obviously things have,
Would you rather have, when you tell young people now coming up, would you rather tell them start early with like marriage, or start like a little bit later?
it's a great question.
That's a good question. And I would say, Stanley, I think it just depends. You know, if you meet that person and you're 22 years old and you know that person is the person you want to spend the rest of your life with, go for it. What's stopping you? And if it takes you till you're 30 to do that, then so be it. That's just, you know what I'm saying? Like,
I know everybody's path is like,
right, everybody's
frame's
kind of got
different.
their own thing, yeah.
You've got to be ready to have that relationship too. If you're not ready for that.
Like, I don't feel like there's any need to rush.
Yeah.
But if it's there,
Yeah.
why not?
Yeah, I think sometimes people just meet it, they say, oh, I'm too young, this can't be right, or the panic. Like, I went to an undergrad where it felt like to register for your senior year, you better be getting ready to be married, or you have not going to graduate, you know. Obviously, our institution is a lot different. We don't have as many people getting married, you know, when they're graduating and things like that. But it's a great question, because there's
but
a
then
lot of
again, now
pressure.
you have like some of the young kids coming up, they getting married, coming straight out of high school. And it's like, you haven't really experienced anything yet. So this is your first time getting to see what it's like being an adult. So you don't know much. been under parents all the time. They gave you freedom, yeah, but you don't know what it's like to get on your own. You're not used to that. How do you tell them to maneuver that? Like, because usually I would say like, don't even get into that too fast. You know, like you still have some things you want to do before you even get to that point.
I guess my response to that would be, I had some things I wanted to do, but I wanted to do all those things with her. So why not, you know? But if, for you, if you have those things that you want to do and you want to experience, then you need to go do that. You don't need to, in my opinion, you don't need to jump to a relationship and then 6 months down the road go, man, I wish I'd have waited 2 more years. I'd have liked to have gone to overseas and played basketball or whatever, you know, whatever that dream or that vision is that you have. You know what I mean? So.
Because usually I see that a lot, and I'm like, I'll just be looking at myself like, when I was like freshman in college myself, I wasn't even thinking about getting married. Even coming to high school, I wasn't even thinking about that. I mean, yeah, I see people doing it, but I want to do my own thing. I didn't want to follow what they do, you know what I'm saying? And my dad and my parents, my mom, they understood that. It was like, hey, listen, you don't have to rush anything. You don't need to know. Take your time. You didn't really experience nothing yet. Your life is just really starting. Being independent now, because, you know, that's how it is.
Sure. Yeah, well, with us, you know, I was in the Navy for 4 years before we even started dating, so we didn't get married right out of high school or anything. And I've traveled all over the world. I've been in 23 different countries before we even started dating, so I've seen some stuff, so it's not like we rushed into something.
Well, and I think you make an important point that there are some things you want to do and you want to be independent. And there are some people who don't feel comfortable unless they're in a relationship. And if you know yourself well enough to know that you want to go do some things, and that's awesome. Because there are a lot of people who are not that mature and that understanding of where they are. So that's pretty cool.
Anything else? Well, I really appreciate your time, taking out your evening to answer some of those hard questions and think about it. But really, I mean, just on behalf of our community, I appreciate you modeling really healthy relationships, especially for you guys living on campus. I mean, you guys are always in the public spotlight, so we really appreciate it. And Dr. Bolt, I know this is your last few days of teaching here, so thank you. I know this is like a lot of people thanking you, but thank you for all that you've done for us and all the students you've taught. So why don't you give our panel a nice round of applause.